Roswell.
Now will we, do you have another witness?
I do, Mayor. I'd just like to make Rosie Pace, please, a little point of information, if I could, for the benefit of perhaps the city and the commission. As the consultant, I have endeavored to present a cross-section of different witnesses on different levels of the organization, and of which Mr. Kelly represents one particular level, and as Mr. Walters represented a particular level on a policy level, as opposed to Mr. Kelly, for instance, being on the level that he was on as he described it. And it might be something that should be kept in mind that different witnesses may have participated in very compartmentalized activities, such as Guardian's Office activities, as opposed to Treasury Division activities in terms of very isolated jobs. And you might find that different witnesses look at the organization in terms of their experiences on the level that they were operating on. The next witness is an individual named Rosie Pace, and while she's coming in, I'll quickly introduce a few documents.
Rosie Pace is the next witness.
That's correct.
Not David Gregg.
No, we'll go with Rosie Pace next.
All right. You want to lower this?
If I could, please.
Oh, yeah. I understood my... And she's going through it.
I'm trying to think where to put the audience up here and go up there.
I know.
Ready to go through this all the time.
Why are we talking about that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I've got it. Jim. I told him. She's going to try not
Sorry about 5 minutes. Exhibit number 30 will be a Hubbard Communications Office policy letter in June 1959, and I would refer to the commission to the bottom of the page dealing with duplicates of contracts, releases, and promissory notes. And the relevant portion is as follows. Any staff member signing up a pre-clear student or PE attendee should get one original and one carbon copy of each contract, release, and promissory note necessary to be signed. And then, skipping down to the last paragraph, the carbon copy of the contract and release, along with the yellow invoice, is routed to the associate secretary's secretary, and from him to the department head concerned, the director of processing, the director of training, or the PE Foundation director. After being reviewed by the department head, these are then routed for filing in the administrative division of each department. Carbon copy of the promissory note is routed to the director of accounts. This policy must be rigidly enforced as it saves much expense and administrative time. Copyrighted by L. Ron Hubbard. The next document is a form affidavit.
Mr. Flynn, if I might ask, for instance, on that last document, it said that it was copyrighted by L. Ron Hubbard, and it said Mary Sue Hubbard for L. Ron Hubbard. Could you explain that as to what effect that has, or from a legal point of view?
Everything, or 99.9% of the publications of the Church of Scientology are copyrighted by L. Ron Hubbard at various points in time in connection with various areas of responsibility, such as Guardian's Office activities. There was an immediate level of recognition and responsibility below L. Ron Hubbard, and that was primarily in Guardian's Office legal affairs, in Guardian's Office B1 activities, which is intelligence gathering activities, for which Mary Sue Hubbard was directly responsible. So in those types of publications, her name also appeared. And Exhibit 31 is a form affidavit for the Church of Scientology with regard to, and I won't bother reading through all of this because we've got a number of forms of people who actually signed them. But basically, it's a promise not to divulge any information about the Church of Scientology without the prior consent of Hubbard, its members, and the organization itself.
Counsel, where are these coming from so that, they're not something that's just being made up?
All right, well, the HCO policy letter comes right out of a set of green volumes, which, in view of the time constraints that we're working under, I would have to put into evidence all of the green volumes, and if it becomes necessary, we'll do that. There's some 12 of them, and all of the 10 red technical bullets, and if it becomes necessary, we'll do that. But the mountain of paperwork that the Commission could be confronted with in a very short time would become unwieldy.
If you would just address that so that...
Just say where it's coming from.
Yeah.
That's where they're coming from. And if need be, at the conclusion of the hearings, we can just simply put all of those books into evidence and correlate them to the particular Xerox copies that I'm introducing now. And the form affidavit is also such a document. The next exhibit, affidavit of Janet Troy, is, and there will be an affidavit signed by Janet Troy relative to this document and relative to other matters in her involvement in the Church of Scientology, which will be introduced at a later time, and we'll tie the two together. Basically, if you go down to paragraph 6, Janet has stated that she hereby discharges fully and releases L. Ron Hubbard, any Scientologist in Scientology course, their assigns and successors from all rights, claims, or any action myself or any successor or assigns of myself may have now or hereafter the signing of this agreement against L. Ron Hubbard, any person, any Scientology church, their assigns or successors. This release is freely and voluntarily executed by myself with my understanding of the terms used herein and the consequences resulting therefrom. That I do hereby waive all rights to refund or repayment of any donations that I have made or will make in the future to the Church of Scientology. I waive this right of my own free will.
Mr. Flynn, is that legal?
I believe the evidence will be that for most people entering Scientology, they're made to sign these documents at the outset, and for the most part, they have no idea what they're signing. At various points during their proceeding through Scientology, when difficulties arise, if difficulties arise, as the last witness testified, he left, and during the time that he was in, he was never in the RPF. So no difficulties arose until he had already left. And after his brother's wife was visited by some unknown people. But if difficulties arise of a substantial nature during the period that they're in the church, I believe the evidence will show that these people are made to believe that these documents are enforceable in a court of law. And I also believe that the evidence will show that items such as I'm about to introduce indicate that promissory notes, legal promissory notes, were signed. In fact, when you ask me, is it legal? Well, I would say that the thing is utterly unenforceable. But the issue is whether or not the people are made to believe that it might be enforceable.
Right. Didn't one of the witnesses say that they were told that the money would be a money-back guarantee, and some at least try to get their money back, and they were promised but never received it?
That's true. I think that the testimony there and the testimony in the future will be that they are told about a refund policy, but in fact, as you just saw in the Janet Troy affidavit, oftentimes, or most of the time, they sign documents that they don't even realize they're signing, saying they can't get a refund. And then they're led to another policy which says they can get a refund. So there's a conflict between the two policies, and most of the time the people have no idea what their rights are.
Was Janet Troy a staff member?
Janet Troy was a staff member, that's correct.
Is it different for a staff member than just a Scientologist coming in for a course?
It is. The people that sign, there are different types of waivers and different types of releases that are signed for contract for staff members as opposed to a public person who is just coming to get services. For instance, the first affidavit that I introduced, the blank form, was for someone who was a public person. The one I just introduced was for a staff member.
But these are made or represented to the people as legal documents binding in the outside world?
As I indicated before, for the most part, when they're signing them, they don't even know what they're signing. When difficulties arise, they are presented with the fact that they are enforceable documents and they can be used against them in a court of law. And in fact, there will be affidavits in evidence to that effect, which brings up one more point. In view of the time and cost constraints of the 4 days that we're laboring under and the 17 or so witnesses we're going to try to get through, I'm presenting affidavits of people on some subjects to corroborate other pieces of evidence. If the city at some point, having its appetite whetted, so to speak, about the potential scope of this subject, saw fit to continue the hearings and bring in more witnesses, I would suggest to the Commission that there are many, many more witnesses who could come in and testify about specific points.
Are these individual malcontents, or are there many people like this that have been going through the same or similar circumstances where they've been threatened, harassed, apparently threatened to be sued?
What I have endeavored to do is, rather than bring in witnesses who have just been harassed, I have endeavored to bring in witnesses who represent a cross-section of their experiences in Scientology, so that the Commission, I believe at the end of 4 days, will have experiences with different people in different positions who experience different things in the organization, rather than just a succession of victims who have been harassed, some of which you will hear about in detail.
One thing about the contracts, you mentioned the young man, Mr. Kelly mentioned about young people younger than him, younger than 18, that were 12 or 13 that are handling vast sums of money. Did they also sign these contracts?
The next exhibit is an exhibit of Tanya Burden. It's a multi-page exhibit with some $60,000 or $70,000 in promissory notes, who worked for the organization from the age of 13 to the age of 17. She never was given any education in this city. She was here for 2 years and 3 months. And as you will see from the exhibit, she signed releases, non-disclosure bonds, promissory notes.
At what age did she sign these?
At varying ages, with regard to the invoices and the promissory notes, at various times when she was in the city. With regard to the releases, she signed releases when she was in the organization, and then afterwards she was taken after she escaped from the city of Clearwater, as the affidavit will show, and if need be, she could be called as a witness. But she does have a lawsuit against the church, and I have made an effort to discriminate between individuals who have a lawsuit and those who don't, but she could be called as a witness. And as some of her documents show, she was, in her affidavit will show to the Commission, after she literally escaped from the Fort Harrison RPF, she went home to the city of Las Vegas, and approximately 2 or 3 weeks later, 2 Guardian's office operatives arrived in the city of Las Vegas and took her to Los Angeles, locked her in a room, and put her on the cans. And after that, she was made to sign many documents which are here, which I won't read at this particular time, but I'll read in connection with her affidavit, whereby she was informed that she owed the organization some $60,000. And this was after she was out of the organization, and she was sent a freeloaded debt of some $63,000, which she told she had to pay. And
what I'm getting at is, when she signed something that she believed to be legal, was she a minor? Was she underage?
That's correct.
She was about 16 years old?
That's correct. She signed many documents at various points in time from the age of 13 to the age of 17.
Can a 13 to a 17-year-old sign something to pay $80,000, $90,000?
Of course not.
Counsel, one question that I have here, this is a administrative or a legislative hearing, and some of the rules of justice do not prevail here on hearsay and what have you. But if you had to introduce all of this into evidence, you said that it would be voluminous. What are you talking about in size?
Well, for instance, when Mr. Walters was on the witness stand, he is aware of most policies within the church. And to go into every policy, his testimony could have taken a week in itself because of the scope of his knowledge. And we could have put into evidence probably 15 or 20 different volumes of 600 to 700 pages each, together with probably 1,000 documents of Guardian's Office activities, which would begin to display the scope of the operation. Since we don't have that amount of time, and we're laboring under some financial constraints, what I've endeavored to do is to present some people at different levels, and you will be hearing from some Guardian's Office operatives who actually have committed burglaries. You have just heard from an individual who was simply a young boy who came into the organization and worked at a very low level here at Fort Harrison, and you heard it from his point of view. And you heard Mr. Walter's experiences from his point of view. So in order to give you a proper perspective, we could be here for 2 months, and in my own judgment, having worked on this subject for 3 years, you would begin to realize the scope of the problem, in my own judgment. In any event, the next witness is Rosie Pace.